Hi ho, EDCI 708, my friends from Charlotte. It is Dr. Palermo with your week 8 instructional video. Just a couple of comments about the readings and thoughts about your work. And we're coming up here in week 8 on spring break next week. So I hope that that's a little bit of a break for you, an R&R. If you're a Seven Habits fan, maybe it's time for you to sharpen the saw. And if not, maybe it's a time for you to catch up on some of your writing as well. And I hope that one of the discussion boards about your PLCP might give you a springboard to do some writing on that evidence. Readings this week. Standards for Educational and Psychological Testings. Chapter 6 is about test administration, scoring, reporting, and interpretation. I worked in North Carolina schools during time that we were giving standardized tests throughout North Carolina public schools in EOCs and EOGs. And I want to focus there my thoughts about the standardized test administration throughout your district. Those of you in South Carolina, I'm pretty sure that you have similar measures, statewide standardized assessments. Think about how those assessments are, well, what kind of training is done for test administrators in your building? Who is the test administrator in your building? Have you ever served as a test administrator? I'm sure that you have administered these tests or been a proctor or made up test schedules, testing schedules. How well does your district do at standardized testing? If you don't know or aren't sure how well they do, have they ever been in the newspaper because of a misadministration of testing? Have there ever been problems at your school with test administrations, special ed kids not getting their modifications and things? Testing time for this high stakes standardized testing is very stressful. And some districts and schools do standardized test administration very well, others don't. I really enjoyed your images of concepts like test linking and norms and scoring last week, but I'm not going to ask you to respond to the test administration this week. I've got a couple other discussion boards geared up instead, but I want to revisit this topic when we meet again face to face. And I bet that there is a horror story or two that you know about how not to do test administration. This stuff kept me awake as a principal, and we had a couple of crises or nightmare kinds of situations around testing and test administration in my building. I bet you did too. And how do we avoid those? So how do we learn from that and do quality, high quality test administration, scoring, reporting, and interpretation? How do we do that? In particular, how does test administration go down at your building? So those standards are important. What formal procedures have been established for requesting and receiving accommodations? Test takers should be informed of these procedures in advance of testing. Who communicates that kind of stuff to your teachers, to the actual test administrators in your building? Okay, so standards chapter 6 is kind of important, but we're not going to talk about it this week. We will when we get back together for face-to-face. You should be reading Tepper and Flynn, and Tepper and Flynn chapter 7 is the concluding chapter. I do want you to think about that and then to respond to the core question of the chapter: what professional learning builds your capacity to lead learning? What professional learning builds your capacity to lead learning of others in the building or the district? And so what resonated from that? They talk about some interesting methods of building capacity and professional development. What works for you? And then finally, also, you should be reading Hattie and Clark prior to our third meeting. And PLCP-B, you have an action plan in your PLCP. Many times when I see part B arrive, folks have taken their action plan and highlighted certain steps, and those are the ones that they've accomplished. highlighted in different colors for other steps that maybe weren't accomplished. Take your action plan from part A, please, and now comment on it. Provide us an update, please. What successes can you celebrate? What frustrations have you experienced? If you can comment on the tech support, that's good too. But show us which of those action steps have actually been accomplished or will be accomplished soon, and comment on those. This can take the form of a bulleted list, or it can be a full-blown portion of your PLCPB. But revisit the action plan. Tell us which steps have been accomplished, why, how is that going. Comment on the progress of your action plan. And again, perhaps you can write that in such a way that it will feed your PLCPB. So multitask that if you can make it work for you. Either provide an outline of your progress or more, and that's up to you, but multitask it if you can. Have you been a test administrator? Yeah, okay. That's all for this week. It is a time for you to, again, be working on your PLCPBs and CDPBs. I'm going to ask you to bring copies of both of those works in progress to our third meeting. We will do a peer review of those documents in our third face-to-face meeting, and they'll be due soon after we meet again in Charlotte. So keep working on those, please. Perhaps, again, a spring break is time for you to catch up on some of your writing, and if not, have a great R&R, and see you in a couple of weeks. Thanks.